Today we're going to take a look at Affinity Publisher. I'll go over some of the basics you'll need to get started in this program, and hopefully by the end you'll know how to create something like this in Affinity Publisher. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new document. To do that, I'm going to go up top to the File menu and select New. And now our new document panel appears. Over here on the left are some common document sizes, but you can also choose a custom width and height right over here. For this example, I'm going to go ahead and choose A5. You can also choose what type of units you want your document to appear in. This is a matter of personal preference, but I'm going to go ahead and stick with millimeters. Now in the next tab over, which is called Pages, we have to decide whether we're going to have facing pages, how they're arranged, which side it starts on, and the total number of pages in our document. Everything looks good to me, so I'm going to move on to the next tab over, which is the Color tab. So if you're creating something digital, you're going to want to pick RGB, but if you're going to be printing something by way of a commercial printer, then you're going to want to go with the 4-color process CMYK. As far as the color profile goes, I would leave it as is for now. Just know that your printer may have you go back and change that in order to get the best results from their particular machine. Alright, moving along to the Margins tab, I'm going to go ahead and set my margins to 10 millimeters on each side, except for the bottom margin, which I'm going to set to 13 millimeters, just to give it a little bit of extra breathing room. And if you notice, the preview up above changes in real time, which is pretty cool because that way you can see what your page size and margins are going to look like. Alright, moving along to the final tab, I can see that my bleed is already set to 3 millimeters on each side, which is exactly what I want. So now I'm just going to go ahead and press the Create button. Alright, first things first, let's take a quick look at the interface. On the left-hand side you have the toolbar, on the top you have the context toolbar, and on the right and left side you have the studio panels. One thing I really love about Affinity Publisher are the personas. This allows you to switch between Affinity Designer and Affinity Photo, gaining access to the tools that are specific to those programs. Now if your page looks blank and it's not showing a grid like mine is, you can turn that off and on by going up to View and selecting Show Grid. Now if you're already familiar with other design softwares, then a lot of the icons in the toolbar are going to seem pretty familiar. We have the Pen tool, the Frame tool, the Text tool, and many more. But to start things off, I'm going to double click on my A master. And now I'm going to select the Rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw a frame to cover the entire spread. Now real quick, the reason I'm doing this to the master is because I'm setting up a template, and whatever I do to the master spread is going to appear on every other page of my document. So now that I have this frame, I want to fill it with a color. Because my rectangle tool is selected, I can go up to the context toolbar and click Fill. From here we can either pick our own color, choose from a set of predefined swatches, or create a gradient. I'm going to go ahead and pick my own color. Now what I'm looking to do here is just add a very subtle cream color so that our page isn't stark white. Now it may be a bit hard to see, but this color is now applied to every other one of our pages. And speaking of pages, let's go over a few things real quick. First I'm going to hit the letter V on my keyboard to select the Move tool, and then I'm going to double click on pages 2 and 3. Now up here at the top of the Pages panel, we have icons that allow us to add pages, duplicate pages, and delete pages. Alright, before we start importing images into our layout, I want to create a grid, because otherwise we're just placing text and images randomly onto the page without any structure. So let's go back to the Master A. And now I'm going to go up top to the menu where it says View and click on Guides. From here, I'm going to create a 9-column grid. I'm going to change the gutter to 4 millimeters. I'm going to change the style to Outline. And just so we can see the columns a little bit better, I'm going to change the color of the guides. Now I don't want them to be too dark, but I at least want to be able to see the guides properly. So I think this light gray color is perfect. Now before we import our first image, let's click off of the A master. Now that I'm on page 2 and 3, I'm going to go over to the toolbar on the left hand side and I'm going to find the Place tool. And now I just have to locate the image that I want to place. And once I've found it, I can click Open. And now I'm just going to click and drag the image into place. By the way, if you want to hide your grid so that you can look at your spread without any column showing, just hit Ctrl W on your keyboard and hit Ctrl W to bring it back again. Another easy way is to click this icon up here, and that's going to take you in and out of preview mode. Now if you want to move the image around on the page, select the Move tool by clicking the black arrow on the toolbar, or press the letter V on your keyboard. And then you can just click and drag the image. Alright, let's talk about cropping for a minute. If you want to crop the image, select the Vector Crop tool on the toolbar, and then you can just click and drag from any one of the handles. And once it's cropped, you can reposition it within the frame. And now I'm going to hit Command Z a couple of times because I actually want those borders. Alright, now before we start placing more images and text onto the page, I want to bring your attention to the Studio panel on the right. Now as you can see, we have the layer panel selected, and even though there's not much to look at right now, once the layout develops and we fill it with more images and text, this layers panel is going to get populated very quickly. So a couple of things you can do to organize it. You can group layers together, you can rearrange them so that one sits on top of the other, and if you click this little button over here, it'll temporarily hide the layer, which can be useful for organizational purposes. Alright, let's go ahead and place another image, but this time let's start off with an empty picture frame. So let's head over to the toolbar on the left-hand side. About midway down, you're going to find the Picture Frame Rectangle tool. You can also access it by hitting the letter F on your keyboard. And once that's selected, I can just click and drag a picture frame. And now I'm going to select the Place tool just like before. I'm going to choose my next image, and I'm going to click Open. And as you can see, that placed the image inside the picture frame, but I'm noticing that part of the image is cut off. And that's because the dimensions of the picture frame we drew are not the same as the image. Now there's a couple of ways to fix this. What I like to do is go up top to the Context toolbar and click Properties, which gives you a couple of options for scaling images. And the one we want is Scale to Minimum Fit. And as you can see, now we have the entire image, but there's also empty space on each side of the picture frame. So I'm just going to grab one of the handles and slowly drag it until the image and the picture frame are the same proportions. And now I can scale the image by clicking and dragging one of the corner handles while holding down the Shift key, and that's going to constrain the proportions. So one last thing about the Picture Frame Rectangle tool is if you click on your image, these icons appear, and each one has a different function. So the bottom one zooms in and out, the middle one allows you to move the image around within the frame, and the top one lets you rotate the image. Alright, moving on to text. So adding a text frame is very simple. In fact, it's not too much different than adding a picture frame. So you just want to head to the toolbar and select your Frame Text tool, and then you can draw a text frame by clicking and dragging. So this is going to be a headline, and I'm just going to go ahead and type it in right here. But as you can see, it doesn't quite look like a headline yet, so now we have to style it. To do that, I'm going to head up top to the Context toolbar, and first I'm going to change the font. So these photographs are from 1928 by a photographer called Karl Blossfeldt. But I think I'm going to go with something a little bit more contemporary because I think it will make for a nice juxtaposition. So now that I've selected my font, I'm going to change my font size to something more appropriate for a headline. I'm going to style it with some italics. And lastly, I'm going to center align it to reflect the symmetry of the photographs. The next thing I want to do is add a text frame for some body copy. So I'm going to turn the guides back on. I'm going to make sure that my Frame Text tool is selected. And I'm going to draw another text frame in the position that I want it. And now I'm going to fill it with some placeholder text, which Affinity calls filler text. To do that, I'm going to go up top to the menu, I'm going to click Text, and I'm going to scroll down to find Insert Filler Text. And now I'm going to go up top to the Context toolbar, and I'm going to make this a 2-column text frame. But now the space between these 2 columns looks a little bit wonky. So I'm going to click this arrow right here, and then I'm going to close the gap between those 2 columns to about 4 millimeters. And now I'm going to change the justification to Center Justified. And the last thing I want to do is add a text frame for some captions. So I'm going to make sure that my Frame Text tool is selected. I'm going to draw a text frame. I'm going to reduce the number of columns to 1. I'm going to change the justification to Align Left. And I'm going to insert some filler text once again. And now I'm going to reduce the font size to 8 point. And just to make sure everything is aligned, I'm going to turn back on my guides and adjust as needed. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.